I'm really excited to be here with you today. So we'll be talking through MyHire advanced searches. So I have put together a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. I'm sorry, it is very plain and very simple, but I just really wanted to be able to share something on PowerPoint and then go through a demo and then hopefully answer any questions or possibly just spend some time allowing everybody to start their own search string and spend 15 minutes going through and practicing yourself. So when we think about MyHire, there are actually 3 different types of searches that you can do within the system. So the first one is an advanced search. So very similar to like a LinkedIn search. You'd be able to go in, put different criteria into the system, and have it bring back results. A conceptual search is a little bit different, and we'll get into some of the details further on, but you can put in several words, and very similar to Google, a conceptual search will bring back similar ideas. So if you're looking for a potential qualification or a specific word, if you put it in there, it will bring back similar or liked phrases. And then the quick search is up on the right hand side of any screen when you're in the recruiting area, where you could put in the candidate's name or requisition number. So we won't spend much time on the quick search, but we'll be most of our time looking at the advanced search string. And so one thing to note, and we'll do a little bit of a refresher for Boolean operators, but MyHire works under the Boolean search function. So if we think about using operators like and, or not, that's what will work as well in MyHire. So the more familiar you are with Boolean search strings, the more effective your searches will be within the system. And so as we look at the most common Boolean operators, and this might be a review for some of you, but I always like to start with the basics because that's how you're going to get the most out of it. And so with search strings, and in particular, will allow for terms to be paired together. And so if you're looking for 2 qualifications for a candidate, if you put and between the 2 of them, the search will look for both of those qualifications. So an example of that would be if you look at, and one thing to note within MyHire itself, a space, it will consider it an and by default. So if you're keying in more than one word, you don't need to put and in there if that's what you're looking for. So what I mean by that is if you look at the phrase talent acquisition. So it's not going to look for talent acquisition as a phrase, but it will be looking for it as talent and acquisition. And so it will go through MyHire and it will retrieve files that has both of those words in it, but not necessarily next to each other. So if you are looking for talent acquisition to be next to each other, you would want to use quotations around talent acquisition. So you would want it to look like this. Otherwise, it'll just be looking for the 2 words anywhere within the candidate's profile. And then or does exactly what you think it does. Instead of looking for both words, it will look for just one of the words. So if you're looking for, in this example, HVAC or technician or tech, if one of those words come up, it will pull into your search results. And so this is a way to get a higher number of hits when you're searching, and will reduce the number of hits. And then not, for not, it will be used to exclude terms from a search query. So if you're looking for Java but not Ruby, you would put not in there within MyHire, and it would just look for resumes or profiles that have the word Java and exclude any profile that has the word Ruby in it. So any questions on these three operators? I'll show some examples of it in a minute, but I just want to make sure that we talk through it first.
Yeah, Tara, this is Tim. Does Boolean work with all three of the different search options within MyHire?
Not within the quick search. It would work within the conceptual search.
Yeah.
I don't use the conceptual search a lot because typically when I'm looking for qualifications within the system, I have a set idea of what I'm looking for. So it will work in there, but you'll bring back a lot more results than you're probably ideally looking for if you use it within the conceptual search.
Okay, got it.
Then a few other Boolean operators that you can use: parentheses. So if you're looking for a manager, but it could be retail or store, you would use parentheses to separate retail or store from manager, and then it would look for both retail in manager or store in manager in the results. I showed a little bit around the double quotation marks on the previous page, but if you're looking for two words next to each other, put them in quotation marks and it will find them together. And then the wildcard. So this is probably one of my favorite things when searching within MyHire, because if we think about all the different words that have root phrases, this will look for all of the words that start with the specific phrase that you're looking for. So my example here is recruit. So if you put recruit star, it will retrieve anything that has the root word of recruit in it. And so that could be recruiting, recruiter, recruits, because we do know that when candidates talk about their experiences, there's not necessarily a consistency across the specific phrase that they might use, or title. So if we think about manager, you could do manage star and we bring back managing, manager, management, and all of those different phrases as well. So as you think about being able to bring in a broad experience level, you don't have to remember all of the different ways that a candidate might use that word. And if you haven't seen it yet, I did put a nice little link in here, and I'll send out this search or this PowerPoint after we're done. But this link, what's really nice about it is that it will actually build your Boolean search for you. So you don't have to be an expert at knowing how to use Boolean to get an accurate Boolean search. So there's different ways to be able to use it. This also creates an X-ray search, which is a story for another time, but there's a lot of ways to be able to build a Boolean and be able to successfully, put it into MyHire, even if you're not an expert at it. Any questions on Boolean operators? Okay. So let's first start with the advanced search. So the nice thing about an advanced search is that there's a lot you can do with it, and you can really start with a high level or a high number of candidates and be able to whittle it down to very few. So depending upon what you're looking for and the amount of time you have, you can really tailor your search to those qualifications. So some of the great things to note here is that the advanced search includes the greatest number of candidate files, and it works with specific keywords and related search terms, and it can match candidates to existing requisitions, and then you can also search by job title or OLF, basic profile, skills, and even pre-screening questions. So I know that we've had a lot of discussions about pre-screening questions over the last couple of months as it relates to the value stream. So once we start using those more consistently, in the future you could actually search by a specific question. So you'd be like, all right, let's find out all of the candidates who answered this specific question, and I'm looking for this specific answer, and then be able to just review those candidates. So let's get in. And so advanced search, and then search queries. So advanced search is where you're going to build your search string. And then search queries, as you create your search strings, if you find one that you really like and it's bringing back results, you can actually save that. So if you want to run it on a regular basis to see if there are any new candidates in the system that meet your qualifications or your search string criteria, you can actually save it. And we'll save one in a few minutes here so you can see it. But when you save it, it'll put it into the search query section, and then you can just come and run it without having to rebuild it every time you want to use it. So that's a really nice little feature there. And so as we do this, I put a nice little quote here somewhere. Okay, it's on the last page. So give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe, by Abraham Lincoln. So when I was a recruiter and I did a lot of direct sourcing, that really resonated with me, because when I first started sourcing, I'd put in a really broad search term into LinkedIn or MyHire, and then I would go through hundreds of profiles looking for what I was looking for, and sometimes I would get some hits. Sometimes I would go 4 hours without finding anybody. So to maximize your time within MyHire as you're sourcing all these great candidates, spend some time playing around with what you're putting into it to find the exact candidates you're looking for. So I want to give you an example of that. So here we're going to start with a search. So let's just say we're looking for an HVAC tech. We're going to say it doesn't matter when their profile was last updated. We're looking for exact terms. Doesn't matter whether they're internal or external, but we do know that we want them to be within a commutable distance of Chicago. And so this will pre-populate. If you are looking for a specific geographic area, my suggestion is to go to location. And you can even go down to the PeopleSoft location. So if you know the direct office where a candidate might be working, you can pick that specific location. But for this demo, I'm just going to go with the city. And then hit search. As it loads, you will see that it's bringing back a significant number of candidates. Our search is very large, and we were looking to see how many meet that minimum title in the geographic area that we're looking for. If it will load for me. All right, well, it's supposed to bring back over 300 candidates. Well, in an average afternoon, you're probably not going to spend that much time going through candidate profiles. So you can see here, you know, the total number. This is going to take a really long time. There's probably a lot of candidates in here that probably don't meet our minimum qualifications, or, you know, we've already looked at some point in time. So there are some quick filters on the side that you can do. In terms of internal, if they were referred, if they're active on another requisition, a few submission things, and then you can even whittle down the radius or look at advanced filters here. But for our demo, we're not going to be using the quick filters today. We're going to continue to use the advanced search string. So a nice little cheat trick is here. If you go to return to the search query, it keeps all of your information in there. So you don't have to reload your keywords or any information that you've put in. Okay. So now let's try HVAC technician. And I'm using quotation marks, so I'm looking for the two words directly next to each other. And go to search. Hello? It'll bring down the number of candidates to 1. That's not what was supposed to happen. I tested this yesterday. All right, let's see what other search criteria I have on here. Oh, I spelled technician wrong. That would do it. Sounds like somebody might not be on mute. So that's a really great example, though. So if you're not using exact spelling, it will bring back the wrong number of candidates. So now you can see that we've got 97 candidates to look at. That's still really too many for me to go through within probably the period of time I have. So if we go HVAC and commercial, it'll bring us down a little bit more. So you get the idea, right? So let's say, but one of the last things we're looking for is a degree to go along with this. So you could come down here. You can go by institution, you go by program. I would suggest by going by level. The problem with going by institution or even program is that if you think about how many different ways there is to load a particular school, so if you take, for example, my alma mater is Michigan State University. Well, you might have Michigan State University, MSU, misspellings, as I demoed a few minutes ago. So all of those different things, you're probably not going to get as many hits off of the institution as you would by just going off of a particular degree level. You can also put graduation date. If you're looking for early in their career, maybe recent grads, you can put graduation dates. And then here, down here, you can see that there would be different questions around the pre-screening questions, and then also whether a candidate was referred at some point or time or not. So there's a lot of different ways that you can search. But by putting in some of the basic qualifications, you're going to come up with a really manageable candidate pool to review. Now, having a commercial HVAC technician with an associate's, you can see that we now have 20. 20 is a really manageable number, and you can even review the candidates if they have an attachment this way. So you never actually have to go into their profile. That's a bad one. If I can get one with an attachment. Right here. So without even going into their profile, you can review their qualifications. And based upon one or two candidates this way, you can also adjust your search after that. So if you're finding that this is probably the type of candidate that you're looking for, your search is in good shape. If you're finding that it's not bringing back the right candidates, I would just go in and adjust a couple of things to make sure that you're on the right track and not wasting your time looking at unqualified candidates. So let's say this is the search that we really like. We get what we want. Now we can save this search. You can even add some notes. It's my personal query. And here there's even some other areas. So we don't do a lot with folders, but you could even create like specific folders. So if you wanted to do one for a specific city or folders for each of your functions, you can separate it out there. We'll hit done. And if we go to search queries, it's right for you to find. That is the basics of a search query. Now, what kind of questions can I answer? Are there specific questions to specific jobs? You know, what comes to mind? I know there's got to be a few questions out there.
Yeah, Tara, Mario's asking a question via the phone. So he was asking if there's any way to remove candidates from a search that, Mario, what was it, that were not qualified for the job or not selected previously or something? Yeah, so he's asking if you can disqualify someone from the search based on a lack of skills. I mean, because obviously, you know, a lot of resumes are going to populate that, you know, aren't a fit, even though they have the buzzwords.
Yeah, there's not going to be a way to remove previously viewed candidates or a way to note that. So you may be reviewing a couple of candidates that you've seen in the past. I do remember memorizing some of those names or being able to recognize some of those names when going through this in the past. So unfortunately, there's not. You can set up your searches, though, where if you're looking for a last update. So if a candidate hasn't updated in a while, you can narrow your search by the amount of time, right? So if you're looking for candidates who have just applied within a shorter period of time, that will probably exclude some of the candidates that you know that you've seen in the past, especially if you do regular reviews. And if you can consistently do it the same monthly, you would only see candidates that have updated their profile within the last 30 days. So that might be a really good way to continuously make sure that you're not seeing those candidates. Now, unless they're getting in and they're updating their profile on a regular basis, you would just be seeing the newest candidates.
Mario, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Oh, he's on the Skype now. There you go, buddy. And Tara, I had one question about what's the actual date of how many candidates are in the system? I know we did the transition. Was that like 2013 or 14?
It was 2014. Mm-hmm.
So we have candidates going back from 2014 to present, pretty much, with some from the previous database as well, right?
Yes, they are out there.
Okay, and then when you're doing a search, I've noticed that a lot of the people from previously applying, you know, they don't have that little link for the resume on there. Is there any way to sort by that, where you can sort out people that don't have a resume, or I don't know, a little more advanced searching there?
So what I would suggest, you know, you could see if they have attachments here. Let me get rid of this for a second. Depending upon what you're looking for, you know, you can see whether they are an internal, if they're a referral, if they have attachments. But you can also set up your format list. So you can edit this to have a specific view. So if there is specific information that you're looking for, you could set up your advanced search so you see specific pieces of information. So candidate attachments, their country, state, date of availability, if that was part of their application. You know, some of this we don't necessarily capture, but you can put in education level and their most recent institution. I believe you can even do employer, so current employer, most relevant work experience. So if you want to do current employer, you could add this to be the third thing that you see. Say current employer and education level. So that's the 4. And then you can go save. Okay, so format name. Oh. So, all right, so let's sort by this. And so now your view and so here what you can see these numbers is relevant. So I should have touched on that beforehand, but I just accidentally took it out. But you can see here that in this particular search, you don't have education level, but you can see your current employer. So it just depends upon what the candidates load. And maybe education level isn't the right thing that we have in our application, so you might have to test a couple. Let's go back in there.
That's pretty neat, though. That's something I mean, that wasn't my original question, but that's great. That's very cool.
So yeah, so there's, just ways to make your search easier, but you're going to have to play with it okay, so job function is current job. So fun fact, so when it says job function, that's actually their job title. But this is a really good way for you to quickly see the information that is most relevant to you. So you could see here that we've got a lead technician for AirTemp or from Sears.
And do we have a relocation checkbox yet? A yes or no to relocation, or no?
It is a pre-screening question, and it was a very common one coming out that we're probably going to include in some of our requisitions for the rapid experiment.
Sure.
So that would be something that we would probably use as like a question, but it's not part of our standard application to ask if they're interested in or open to relocation.
So there's no way to search by candidates willing to relo or not willing to relo?
Not at this point, unless that question was specifically added as a pre-screening question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something that we capture as part of their application today, consistently.
Is that something we're looking at, or not necessarily?
As one of the pre-screening questions, yes, for some of the roles. So it won't necessarily be on all of the roles, but as part of those pre-screening questions, at the top, you can add them in. We're looking to get some consistency around them as part of this rapid experiment, but it is something that we can capture on a regular basis, especially if it's important to a certain function. We can start looking at ways to maybe automate that, add it into the template, or have the tabs add it in as a pre-screening question prior to posting.
Cool. I just know that's a big miss for a lot of us. A manager is like, yeah, I'll relocate somebody. Okay, well, how do we figure out who wants to relocate to Texas? It's just not... it's just not that easy to figure out. I mean, you can, but there's a lot of hurdles, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Any other questions from the phone or the computer?
Hi, Tara. This is Polina.
Oh.
Great overview. I had a question, and I'd love to pick your brain as a super user of MyHire. And
Sure.
so the other day, I went into MyHire and did a search for material planning manager in quotes. And so it generated about 300 candidates. And so as I started going through, it ended up, I noticed, a lot of the candidates were not qualified. And what I did notice was that they were tied, or they had applied for material planning manager requisition. So what are your thoughts around that?
What additional qualifications are you looking for?
So the keyword would be material planning manager in quotes that I used.
Yeah, and what other, like, what qualifications would you be looking for from that role? Like years of experience or, additional skill set? What would make a qualified candidate?
Yeah, so they would have managerial experience. They would have materials experience. And for this particular role, it would be 5 years of materials management experience.
Okay. You said that by doing this, you came up with over 300.
Around 300, if I remember correctly.
Did materials have an S on it?
It could or it couldn't. So in the example that I'm using, but I mean, it could or it couldn't. So definitely the trick you taught us with the asterisk, I definitely plan to use moving forward. That was great.
Yeah, and then were you looking for a specific city?
I put in the United States because we are offering relocation, so that's probably why I populated 300 candidates, because of I put United States and not a specific city.
Okay, and what city would it be?
Buffalo, New York.
So let's just start here. Let's see what happens. Because you can always go wider. Birth location. And then let's look at, do material planning managers typically have some type of education?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for the most part, we do want a bachelor's degree. In this case, it's preferred, not required. So yeah, I mean, you could put in bachelor's degree. That's a good point.
And then if we're looking at job function, so here you can add job functions. Let's just see what happens. Okay, so we went a little too far. So let's get rid of this. And let's get rid of this. Okay, so if it gives you that, just come over here. And I'm going to go just with that title and see what happens. So, all right, so we've got the title of materials planning, and this is, throughout the United States, and I came back with 96 who currently have that title or that function somewhere in their resume. So whether it's their current or a previous title. So that might be a good way of doing it. Trying by actually using, because the one thing that's really confusing is that the job function within MyHire is actually the title of the job that they're doing.
The title of the job they've applied for, or what the title in their resume, or anything that they've provided as far as their application?
So let me get into our staging application environment for a second, and I'll show you. So when we put in All right, so it's not working for me. But when a candidate puts in their information, they will actually be told, okay, so what company do you work for, and then job function. So as of today, job function actually means what their job title is. So as a TAP, your function is talent acquisition, partner. My job function would be talent acquisition operations manager. So it's a little confusing because when we think of function, we think of human resources, we think of sales, service, because within our organization, that's how we use the word function. But in this particular situation, the system views job functions as the job title. So that candidate, that's the job title of the role that they're doing at their current company or at a previous company. That'd be like manager, store manager.
We look at the title, current and previous titles.
I think so, yeah.
Just in the application, or will it also search the attachment, the resume itself?
That is a good question. I would think for these particular ones, it'll probably be what is on the profile. But, if they're doing parsing, it should show up. So you can see some of these different job functions here. Because the candidate would have the ability to load their own. So I would suggest, like in your situation, trying a couple different searches and, start here with job function, see what happens. If you get awesome results, cool. If not, try doing more keywords. And you can also do like related terms, which we can talk about in a second, but it's kind of a science, but it's more of an art. It just takes a little bit of time to play around. But this, I believe, will pull from the profile and not the resume.
Great. Well, that's really helpful. Thanks, Tara.
Sure. Any other questions?
Hey, Tara, this is Andre. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, just wondering, when we post a requisition, there's an option to send out an email to, I guess, the talent community within MyHire. When we go in and do the advanced search here, is this going to pull from the same pool of candidates? Because I know that I don't want to be repetitive when reaching out to candidates. I know it's good to do sometimes, but I don't want to overload candidates with communication about a certain requisition or area.
That is a great question. Those candidates will be in here. There is no way for the system to delineate between candidates who were recently reached out to you via correspondence with those that are coming up in search. Yeah, so you will probably have some overlap when that occurs.
Gotcha. No worries. Because this way, the advanced search, you can narrow down your search a lot more with the criteria that's available versus, when you send that message out. So I like this way a lot better. I just wanted to make sure that, the candidate pool was still the same candidate pool that I was looking at when posting. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I think the one thing that you can note is obviously that when that comes from the system, it's just a generic message. So if you are finding these candidates to reach out to, it's a more personalized experience. Right. So if they do say that they received that correspondence, you can say, oh, well, that's fantastic. I also just wanted to spend a few minutes reaching out because I thought your background would be a really great fit. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. We're coming down to the last 10 minutes here. So let's go through just some basics around related terms. So the related term search considers terms related to the keywords in the query. The default operator used is OR. So what that means is that if you're using related terms and you put in recruiter talent acquisition, it's considering that in between these words, it's an or, as opposed to in the exact term, it is assuming that the space means and. So this will bring back, if we do, what we'll do is we'll do a quick exact search so you can see what comes up and the number of searches. All right, while it does that, we'll walk through the other ones. And to be used when initial query has yielded very few candidates. So this would be a second step if your first step of using advanced search doesn't bring back what you're looking for. So if you've put in 1 or 2 words in a geographic region, you're not getting that many hits, that is when you would try the related terms. So because it does bring back a broader number of candidates, so if you're already getting a lot of hits, this will bring back even more hits because it's broadening the number of phrases that it's searching within the system. So you can see here it's got over 300 already, so that might have been a bad example. But if you use the related term, it's going to bring back even more than that. Let's just do recruiter. So it's a neat thing to play around with if you have a little bit of time. I would probably just use that if you've got a really tough position to fill that has a high number of qualifications or really random qualifications. If it's a job that there aren't a lot of people out there who do it, and it can be described really broadly. So we know, for example, in IT, you know, the level of experiences and certifications out there and ways of saying the same experience can be really vague, right? So I would say that this would be a good way to search if you've got a really specific list of qualifications, but a lot of different ways of saying it, because it will help delineate between those. And then just a few other things to note within MyHire. It doesn't pick up punctuation or separation. So if you're using like periods or ampersands, etc. So the star meaning like in the middle, like not next to a word, but just randomly placed, it won't pull anything back. I actually think I meant this to be the @ sign, not the star. So like this sign, except for when using like an email or phone number. Actually, I will show you something really fast, which is a quick thing for the quick search, because we do have a few minutes, but using the exact terms needed, accurate spelling. So it's not like Google. You can't put in a misspelled word and it will still bring back results. It's got to be spelled correctly. And then filters, as we showed, certainly make a difference. And then I already talked about using the save function. But what I also really like in here, okay, so let's say you are just in here and you can't find a candidate because maybe they've given you a nickname or you don't have the accurate spelling of their last name, something along those lines. But if you have their email address, you could put their email address up here. And it will bring them up. Very straightforward, easy to do. The other thing that you can do is a phone number. So if you have that piece of information, maybe a candidate has left you a voicemail, you can't understand their name, but you know that you have their phone number, you can throw that up here, and if the phone number populates, it will show you the candidate. So that's just a really nice, quick way to be able to search. Or if you know part of the candidate's name, you have to have at least 3 letters, but the star works here as well. So that has saved me more than once when I haven't been able to figure out the spelling of a candidate's name. You can guess the first couple letters and maybe their first name or their last name, but that star feature, that wildcard, works up here in the quick search as well. So I know we're down to the last 5 minutes. Are there any other questions, or does anybody have advanced search that they want to try out or get any suggestions for? Okay, well, if you do think of any questions or have any search strings that you want to run by me, absolutely feel free to email me or ping me. I'm always here to answer any MyHire questions that you might have, and hopefully this was a little helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, Tara. And anybody who does a little more with MyHire this week, please update on Yammer. Any successes, any wins, any suggestions for improvements. I'm sure Tara always likes to hear those on how she can help make the system better or ideas we have. So anyways, Tara, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, I'm sure we'll be in touch.
No problem. All right.